Geico asks, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance? Of course you would. And when it comes to great rates on insurance, Geico can help. Like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV. Even help with homeowners or renters coverage. Plus, add an easy-to-use mobile app, available 24-hour roadside assistance, and more, and Geico is an easy choice. Switch today and see all the ways you could save. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com or contact your local agent today.
This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. Like the man said, I am Steve Gould. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all the new listeners that found us and that are checking us out. And thank you, of course, to the vets, the veterans that keep coming back for more. I appreciate you. I appreciate that. I appreciate all the recent 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. And if you could keep doing that, I'd appreciate it. We're up to like 908. So almost to 1,000. If you really love the show and you listen to a bunch of episodes and been consuming the content, just take a second, give the 5-star review. I love that. And also, if you really love the show, you can go to Patreon, links in the show notes. You can be a patrolman or a sergeant level. You get different things with each one. I'll mail you a TPS vinyl sticker, and your life will markedly improve from that point on, I promise you. So if you love the show, do that. But I have to stress that the show will remain free, so don't worry about that. If you can't afford it, if it's not in the budget, I totally understand. The show will remain free, so that as many people as possible can listen to it. So without further ado, let me intro our guest for today. He's a past guest, friend of the show. He was on episode number 116. He told many great stories from his career. I recently listened to his audiobook, ATF Undercover. Really fun listen. I love audiobooks because I can drive around in my cruiser and I don't have to pull over and read or any of that. You can just kind of do your thing and listen. Really fun kind of like beginning to end story of the life of a special agent. I really enjoyed it. He was episode number 116. I don't know if I said that already. I'm a little discombobbled this morning. So without further ado, let me bring on Special Agent retired Ignacio Esteban. Sir, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Steve. Great to be back on, man. I really enjoy your show and your content. Awesome. Great job you're doing.
Oh, thank you, sir. I really enjoy saying your name, Ignacio Esteban. I feel like fancy.
You do better than most. Well, one show, I don't know if I said the show last time, I was on a show. I've done quite a few. I do law enforcement. I do true crime, politics. I do a little bit of everything. I go on different shows. And this is a political show out of Louisiana, Cajun guy. And he knew nothing of Spanish. He said, bro, I can't even say your name. I'm going to say introducing, and you just say your name.
Really? That's funny.
I did. But then later, eventually, I've become friends with him too. I've been on some of his political shows later, and he's tried a little bit harder. So I kind of appreciate that. Yeah. Well, he said, man, I don't speak even English, man. I speak Cajun. I said, I got you.
Yeah. I guess Cajun is that French-based Cajun?
Yeah. There's a lot of French in it. Creole. Yeah. It's all, his own, accent and all that, which was funny. And I said, man, I didn't grow up much with Spanish around. I know. I said, I grew up in Miami. It was all around me.
Yeah, I've tried really hard, and we actually have. I'm in the process of training a new officer at my job, and he is Puerto Rican and speaks fluent Spanish. And I've tried over my life. Like I took Spanish in high school. I'm just not one of those people that I don't take to it. Like I think I'd have to be submerged. Like when I visited my buddy in Madrid for a couple weeks, and by the end of it, I could kind of like do orders with the street vendors a little bit. And then I worked at LA, and like 2/3 of my friends there were Hispanic, and most of them could speak fluently. So I got like the Babbel app, and just when it started to feel like it was going to start clicking, I switched jobs, and I was no longer around those guys. I've said that before in the show. We go out to the taco truck, and they'd be like, they used to call me Ginger Man. They'd be like, "Oh, do we need a parasol for Ginger Man? We don't want his skin to burn up." I was like, I was getting picked on all the time, but it was so fun working with them.
It helps too. It made my undercover career. Because it made it that much easier to deal with all different kinds of people. And I know you heard my book, and I encourage everybody. You can see the poster behind me too. That's the cover of the book, ATF Undercover. And it really, especially in Florida, I dealt with a lot of people from all over, and not just Cuban. You said Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Colombians, South America, all over Latin America.
Yeah.
And those who didn't speak Spanish, well, then my English was broken, and my English wasn't very good either. So that way, I came across a guy who'd been from Cuba for about 10 years, right? Yeah. So the last thing you want to do is be somebody who's highly educated, intelligent, and they're gonna be like, I don't know about this guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a huge asset. 3 of the 4 ATF agents I've had on, all fluent in Spanish, whether they were from Cuba or another Latin America country, they could all speak it. And I mean, I don't know if that's your job and you're dealing with that population. It's kind of it's got to be tough. It's got to be tougher for like just a white dude like me who speaks English. I'd probably have to go in with the bikers or something. I don't think I'd be much use.
Yeah, it makes it harder, but they know that you're in the U.S. And you know what language talks the best?
Cash money, baby.
They see you got that. You'll work it out. Trust me. You'll figure things out there. That talks a lot. When you see that, okay, you'll understand, my friend. They'll find a way to speak some English.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, it is Esteban. Now, listen, you can tell me if this is true or not. When I was in high school, our Spanish teacher, this is actually middle school when we started, Spanish 101, they assigned us all our Spanish name, I think, to try to get us into it. So my friend Paul was Pablo, and I was Esteban. So does that mean Stephen?
Yes, it does.
Oh, okay, so that's true.
I'm the man of 3 first names. Ignacio Javier Esteban.
Nothing wrong with that. That's a fancy name. It kind of reminds me of Princess Bride, the guy whose dad gets killed, and he says his long, nice-sounding name.
I think my daughter saw that one. Yes, that's funny. So Esteban is a very Basque name. My great-grandfather's family were from the Basque region of Spain.
Oh, okay.
Which is interesting. So that's where they come from. But then, a little back on myself, I need to talk in my book, but they all went to Cuba, and you just say this is a little politics here. Spain can be a little regionalized between the Basques and Catalonians and the different regions, Castilians and all that. But when you went to Cuba, there was no talk about that. So all my family was some from Catalonia, some from the Canary Islands, some were from Galicia, right? So you leave, it changes. So and then all of a sudden, nobody cares about the regional part when you leave Spain. It's all, hey, we're all Spanish, or now we're all Cuban, or now we're all American. So everybody forgets about that stuff. You leave the old land, you come to the new land, everybody forgets about the regional stuff. Yeah,
it's very nuanced. Like the Puerto Rican officer I'm driving around with now, we're talking back and forth with Spanish, seeing if he can help me. And he's like, you're speaking very, I don't know how to put it, like very proper Spanish. Like the Spanish, you're like two areas, like nosotros, all that stuff. He's like, he goes, I can speak, I know what you're saying. He said, but I'm speaking a different like dialect of Spanish, more like what his Puerto Rican family taught him. Like to me, a car is automobile, and to him, it's carro.
Carro. Yeah, less formal and different accents, right? If you go to Mexico, it's very different. Argentina, than if you go to Spain, if you go to Cuba. So it's like like American English against British English against Australian English. So
can that screw you up in an undercover situation where like you're supposed to be, say they want you to be Cuban, can you kind of switch dialects or?
I can do a little bit. I can try working a little bit, but I will try to stay in my lane, because under duress or stress that might come across, right?
Oh, you'll go back to it. You revert, and then they'll be like, wait a second.
So I'll kind of not want to do that, but if I had to, I would. But normally I didn't have to do that. I was fortunate. I stayed within my comfort zone, so that was good.
Yeah, keep you a lot safer for sure.
Yeah. I don't have to worry about the accent. I got to keep that in the back of my head. I got to say it like this. If not, I say, hey, you're not from Puerto Rico.
Right. Who are you trying to fool, man? That's Caro.
Yeah.
Ignacio, hearing the book, there was some stories in there that were of great interest to me. I'd love to hear you speak about them. Starting with the Valentine Bloods case that you had. Can you run us through that? Yeah.
That was about 2.5 year investigation, right? And I was working north of Tampa in a county called Pasco County, and I really became really close with the gang detectives in that area. And also we worked with the Newport Richey Police Department too. And they were one of the most violent blood sets, violent gangs, period, in Pasco County. They were really a problem. They're involved in shootings, armed robberies. So, and not every case it fits to work undercover too. Some cases I'm just a case agent, right? Most of the cases I was able to work undercover, but sometimes it doesn't work out well. But you have a good informant, which we did. That's just as good as long as you maintain control of the informant, which is important. You can never let the informant lose out of control because that could ruin your investigation. So it's important to keep them in. And that's why I used to like cut them out as much as I can and put myself in, because I wouldn't want to worry about that. But not every place you can. So this was a case where they were selling a lot of drugs. They're involved in shootings. They're involved in homicides. They were involved in a lot of things where we were able to set up a good case buying dope and guns. Like this is back in, started about 2007 or so, and I culminated the case dismantling the whole organization by 2009, from top to bottom, taking the head of the organization out, and ended up getting almost 20 years. Wow. Very, very fulfilling.
Can I ask you a question about the Bloods?
Yeah.
Like, because I interviewed a Canadian gang worker or expert in Toronto PD. And he said their Bloods are like completely, they're not affiliated with U.S. Bloods. They kind of just like, it's almost just like they just copied it. You know, they just kind of set up their own culture around what they saw in the U.S. Say you're in Florida and Bloods come in from Cali. Is it corporate? Like, would they, hey, I'm a Blood too, would they accept them in, or would they be like, get out of the neighborhood?
Yeah, I think it'll be more get out, because these guys are very regional. A lot of Bloods and Crips don't even like each other, what I've noticed throughout the country.
Okay.
They're more feuding between each other. I mean, I saw that in L.A. I also worked in L.A. for about 8 months. Sometimes you see the Crips go after each other, different Crip sets. Same would be the Blood sets. And these guys were kind of a hybrid, because even though they call themselves that, they're more like Latin Kings, because they're all Hispanics, right?
Oh, really?
Yes.
I hear Bloods, so I think a black gang, like, immediately.
But these were all Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. So it was, they had the Blood set, but they were more like Latin Kings, and the way they were set up and acted. So I think a lot of times by name, they're very tight, access to weapons, very dangerous. And we were fortunate enough to do a lot of dope and gun buys from them, good conspiracy cases against them. Sometimes the best case is the conspiracy case, because in federally, you get these guys a good hammer, especially with drugs and guns, especially when they're armed drug trafficking charges. You get them a good hammer. And we took down almost all of them, about 12 guys in this organization that was just a big problem in that area. The sheriff, it was a big thing. The sheriff had a big press release. At the time it was Sheriff White out there in Pasco County when we took these guys down. And it was very fulfilling in that case. But it's a lot of patience, a lot of work, a lot of paperwork, and you have to be on them, because it takes time to build a case like that. It's not easy. A lot of resources.
I bet. How did you get into this gang? How did it start?
We had an informant, like everything else. I wasn't able to personally get into them, but the informant was infiltration with them on this one here, which helped. Later, obviously we'll talk about the other ones, cases. When I can get into them, obviously can. But being just a case agent, it's a lot of work being a case agent, especially having the resources. I had excellent resources with Pasco County Sheriff's Office, with the gang unit, and also with Newport Richey. When you have guys who really are knowledgeable and know the area and help you, it just makes it a lot easier to work together as a team to dismantle. And then we had an amazing prosecutor, one of the best prosecutors I've worked with, really hammer these guys. And I worked a lot of cases with them. Wouldn't be the case later in Miami. I'll talk to you later. But when you have a great team, great things happen. And we had it all. We had, between my end, working with the detectives and the federal prosecutor, it was probably one of the best teams I ever worked with, for sure.
And did you take it down in one fell swoop, or did you kind of pick these guys off as the investigation went?
We try to get most of them we can, but sometimes these guys, you can't get them all, right? So we did have to eventually get 2 or 3, working with the marshals, get information, put the tip line out there, offer some rewards for anybody who gives information. So it took about 2 months. Once we had them indicted, we had a big takedown, which was impressive. We had the sheriff's office there, our ATF, other law enforcement out there. We had I had search warrants, arrest warrants. I think it was an operation takedown of at least 10 locations, right?
Wow. And
this big briefing, you're taking them down. But sometimes they're not there. And even have the intel, you think they're there, they're actually saying someone else's. Because, they're like us who have, regular life, right? We go home to the same home.
Sure.
Right? They're gang members. They're all over. Yeah. And you think they're somewhere, but they're really at another girlfriend's house that you didn't even know about, right?
It's got to be so much harder when, like, in your career as you went through, you kind of went through the technology boom where you went from like guys having pagers to now they can just text each other like they're outside my house. You know what I mean? Like their information moves so quickly. That's got to be tough for you guys to manage that.
It's incredible how many different ways you can communicate. Not just texting. A lot of these guys have these apps that are hard to trace, like WhatsApp.
Yeah.
That's really hard to come up with. Or, you know what a lot of guys do? They play video games, right? Where there's switches, right? And they communicate on that.
Yeah.
And that's even harder to catch them. So these guys are getting more and more sophisticated with technology themselves, and makes it and even at that time, that had all started coming out, right? It all started, but these guys were still using their cell phones and texting and all that. But today, and the younger generation, and especially with social platforms, media platforms, from Facebook and everything else is out there, everybody's communicating a lot differently than a lot of guys sometimes don't even text anymore. They just use all the different platforms to do it. So, or they have fictitious information to it, right? Everybody sets up a fictitious accounts, and they have so many of them.
Yeah.
So
paperwork nightmare too, to try to get conversations and all that.
Like, the saying is, sometimes we just catch the stupid ones, right?
Right. A little Darwinism sprinkled in there.
Yes.
So when you guys did the takedown, was it all copacetic? Everything went well? There was no incident?
Yeah, no incidents. I mean, obviously, these guys, we go in force. We have a lot of guys. We're well prepared. We hit it. We're all tacked out. So, we wear many hats. I go from the case agent now I'm part of the arrest team. Then I'm back to doing the briefings. So even if you're not the undercover, there is so much. And I'll talk about cases where I'm doing everything else. It's really stressful. But when you're running this kind of operations, this was a major, major case in Pasco County. Pasco County is a county, if you aren't familiar with it, north of Hillsborough and near Tampa, of over 500,000, if not close to maybe close to over 1 million now. So these guys were a big problem, and they were not far on the west side of Pasco, Newport, Port Richey, from Pinellas County either. So yeah, these guys were a problem, and they were violent, and it made a difference. It had an impact on the area and sends a message that we are serious to take down these gangs. And I did a lot of gang cases. Then later I will do undercover myself with different gang members before and after. And, you just have to be on your game and know what you're dealing with. And when you do, dope and gun buys.
When you are the undercover agent, and this is kind of how I imagine it, never having done anything like that, it's got to be tough because, I'm thinking, when I go to a call and and you interview somebody and it turns into an investigation, I'm writing the whole time. I'm writing, getting people's info, licenses, backfilling the call. So I have everybody's info. It's all on the up and up.
Sure.
If you're undercover all the time, would an agent typically when he gets to a safe space at the end of the day, or as long as he's not too deep cover, keep almost like a log? You just have a running report, and then you just put entries with today's date, what you observed, what you saw. Is that how you guys kind of compile your info when you're undercover?
Yeah. What I would do is after the deal, right? I go back to the office, and then I have to do the report, right? I download the recording, I review the recording, I remember, and then I start typing my reports. And then I also have to process the evidence too. So I'll be dealing with the report writing, the ES, electronic surveillance, whatever we had, and then, of course, the property, and then getting ready for the next phase of the investigation. What I'm going to do now? Am I going to keep on doing some buys with this guy? Am I going up on a pen register? Am I going to go phone tolls? Do I want to go? Do I have enough now to go a T3 down the road? Or because it takes a lot to get to there. You have to exhaust every investigative resource you have before you can go down that road, listen to someone's phone calls real time. So if I'm still dealing with guys and I'm still viable and I'm still moving up the food chain, so to speak, with this organization, then I can't really go down that path yet. So I still got to work on different things. Other tools, on their phone calls, surveillance, poll cams. I used to do a lot of poll cams too in different locations. So there's a lot of things you got to wear. And then, of course, I do the briefings, and you're briefing the SAC or the ASAC on your investigation, and supervisor. So it's a lot for sure. But yeah, you have to. I was good about it, even though you have about 5-7 days to do your report. I almost want to do it immediately while it's fresh in my head. Yeah. Right. And put it in writing. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like to listen to the recording and type it up. This is like I write my books. I research and I type it. I'm not a big person taking notes. I like to go right to the keyboard and start typing.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're working a case like this, and like you said, working your way up the food chain, who kind of makes the decision to be like, all right, we're not getting in there. Let's stop here and go for what we got. Is that the ASAC's involved in that? Kind of you give your diagnosis of the case and then the decision's made by the higher ups?
Yeah, I mean, they talk to you. If it's and as a good case agent, you know they should have to tell you, especially when you get more experience. That's more happens when you're at the beginning, I think, in your career. But you know where it doesn't go anymore, and you're like, okay, it doesn't have any more legs, and I got to put a stop. So, okay, let's arrest these guys and flip them and see if they want to cooperate, right?
Right.
If this is not going anywhere. Sometimes, and that's sometimes the best option. So, okay, let's take these guys down. A lot of times they want to cooperate, and they flip, and then the case is back on again in a different direction.
How often are you in communication with like the U.S. District Attorney's Office? Like towards the end of the case, do you just kind of show it, kind of conference with them, or you just submit it?
It depends on like a major case. Like I was working with Valentine Bloods. I had him on board, I would say about a quarter of the way once we realized how significant the case was, how many good buys we had with the higher hierarchy of this organization,
right,
and what we had. And I said, these are significant people, dangerous. And we explained to them, and he goes, yeah, this is something, we want on board because this is what we're about.
Cross the T's, dot the I's.
Yeah, we want to tighten the case, and then we get their input, what else they recommend us doing. Hey, if you can get some more bias off this target, that'll be great. If you get more bias over here, that'll be great too. So we get all the input, and then we start playing a takedown once we're satisfied. And that takes about a good month and a half, 2 months sometimes. You have to get them indicted, right? Go in front of the grand jury, and then you seal it. And then you come out there and you have the warrant for these guys and you put it together. That's a lot of work. Trust me.
I can imagine you're like, it must be frustrating when you're thinking this is it. And then the DA's office is like, well, if you could actually do this, and this, it's like, really? Do we need to? Because that happens to us.
Yeah, it's never over until it's over. That's for sure. And it's a team effort. And that's one thing I understood. I can't just do a PC. I know sometimes on the local state level, you can do a PC arrest sheet, but it really doesn't work that way with us. We have to be all in the same. I want to have it indicted. I don't want any issues. I don't want to dismiss. Let's say they do a probable cause arrest and they didn't like the case. They may dismiss it.
Yeah.
I don't want to prosecute it. Can you imagine that? I'll be a slap to my face. I have to live with that. No, I'm not going to do so. So you definitely have to work with these guys and and sometimes it's difficult because you might put a great case together and they don't have the time or they don't have the interest, right?
Yeah. And
that's frustrating. That's why I always worked a lot with my local counterparts because if not, we also had that option to take to the state attorney's office. I didn't like it because I didn't like doing depositions because in the federal level, we don't have that situation. So, but it happens sometimes where there's no interest, good case, but it's a righteous case. We did it the right way and it needs to be prosecuted. So, that's why I always work well with my locals to get things done one way or the other, federally or the state, but these guys have to be put out. But luckily, this case was federal and the United States Attorney's Office. I had I can't say enough, one of the best prosecutors I've worked with.
That's great. Yeah, on a local level, it's the same thing. Like if you get a case that's kind of like, it's a little bit complicated. Like you don't want to start going down a path until you check in with their office. Because they always have it's always good to have a different set of eyes on it anyways, but they'll have, a lot of times they'll have like an interesting charge you can add or like how to strengthen your PC or whatever. Especially now, like it seems like every single case that you can't complete in a shift starts to involve text messages and chat apps. And it's just annoying. It's like, oh yeah, I got all this stuff. If you could just get the chat logs or whatever, it's like, it's especially if they make you get a warrant, that's the annoying part for us for like a shift worker where you're like you're also on patrol. It's like, oh, can you also write up a warrant real quick? It's like not really, but I will. That type of thing,
Yeah, it's easier if you were a detective, obviously. That's what you
time.
Do.
Yeah,
you have the time. That's what you do. You have the affidavits. I wrote a lot of affidavits, but if you're working patrol. And they're asking for that. I saw a lot of times, sometimes with Pasco County, Tampa Police Department worked with, and other sheriff's office. Sometimes a detective would be called in also to help relieve that, especially with a patrol guy. Yeah. And he said, "Hey, listen, I'm slammed here." And I said, "No problem," and they'll pick it up from there. I guess it depends on the resources you have, especially with that. That's a lot of work to ask for somebody who's working patrol who's got to take care of other calls to have you also work and a search warrant for text phones.
Yeah, we have I work in the hill towns of Massachusetts, Western Mass. It's I love it, but it's our layer of help is really the DA's office, and they don't have investigators. They do, but they're state cops. So if you, like you were just saying, they kind of triage cases. So like if it's a case and you have a resident that's really on you about, they really want this done, you want to advocate for them. Right. You can kick it up the line and say, hey, I need some help, and it's going to be a state cop who's already, it's going to be a state police detective who's burdened with tons of stuff in the entire region, and he might look at it and go, he might give you some pointers, but he can't necessarily like get his hands into it or her hands into it. It's kind of, like you said, they triage the cases, and you might submit it and they'd be like, okay, and then you won't get a summons for like a year, and you're like, what happened to that case? I had a question for you. I thought this was really interesting in your book, because a lot of people cry racism and bigotry nowadays falsely. It's kind of like the hot topic, for people to use. But you had some like hardcore. It's interesting in his book. There's this guy he meets in the beginning of his career who's like just does not like Hispanics. And he pops up through your career, like the guy hangs on, and he pops up in the book, and you're like, this guy again? What the hell is he still doing there? But that was, what was this? The late '80s, early '90s when this guy was?
It was early 2000.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, he was my training officer. He was my training officer at the beginning. I just started with ATF, came over from Customs. And, not everybody has their own ethnic, biases sometimes. Right. And he had done his time in Miami, and I guess he didn't like the whole Cuban Hispanic culture because he had to work there 5 years in the 90s. And, certain terms, I think in any workplace are unacceptable, right?
Yes.
And it's disparaging terms. And I was going to tolerate that, hey, whatever term they wanted to use. And I was like, not cool, whatever. It's almost like they test you, right? And you have to push back. So I pushed back somewhat, and he didn't like that either. So at the end, I went to another group, which ended up working better because I hooked up with, we were talking about Puerto Rican. He's a Puerto Rican guy. He became a mentor. And he was a high-ranking martial artist, black belt guy, was into karate his whole life. And he was involved in some crazy shootings. They call him the bullet catcher. I don't know if you remember in the book, the Puerto Rican bullet catcher. He was involved. You can look this up, folks. He was involved in a shooting in late 80s, 87 in Hialeah, which is South Florida, at the Westland Mall, and making an arrest. And the guy had a SIG 9mm. He had a SIG 9mm. And the guy fired his round at him, and it went right into the barrel of his gun.
That's insane.
He plugged it right there. The bullet catcher plugged right there. And thank goodness that there are other SWAT team around on the other backside, because the car's here, shoots him in the front, opens up and kills him and kills the guy. So
can you imagine that? What would that even feel like, a bullet going into your barrel?
Yeah, he told me it was surreal. He just couldn't imagine it. You start firing, nothing's going on. He's trying to racket, nothing. He's like, what the heck's going on here? That's like your worst nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah.
Your worst nightmare.
Yeah, that's like every cop's worst dream. Like your gun doesn't shoot.
Doesn't go. Yeah, I think we all had that scenario where it just goes, the bullet just comes out like this.
Yeah, absolutely. You were saying about the like people's perceptions, and they get they get bigoted towards certain groups because the environment they grow up in, they can't help themselves. It reminds me when I was a kid growing up, we had this neighbor, and he was the nicest guy. He was Lebanese, and he grew up in Boston, and his dad owned a couple like convenience stores in black neighborhoods. So if they ever got robbed or whatever, it was always a black person. So Bob, growing up, listened to his dad telling him that black people were bad, and it sunk into his head so badly that this guy was like such a racist guy. It was also unbelievable. Like and by the way, in the summer, he loved being out in the sun. He was super dark. Like he looked like a black guy, but he would use the N-word. I remember once on Martin Luther King Day, he put black crepe paper all over his house.
Oh, wow.
To mock the holiday. And then it rained and it stained his signals. And I remember my parents being like, well, that's what you get, Bob. What are you doing? But this guy was like the kindest, nicest guy, super racist, but because of the environment he grew up in, he couldn't he couldn't get over it, I feel like if you're in law enforcement, especially a special agent like that guy was, you got to have better cognitive skills than that. You got to be able to compartmentalize that.
Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of that too myself. Some people, take the job and they take it personal, what they see, and that's what they become. I grew up in Miami, so I grew up in a very diverse environment, right? I have friends from Latin America, from all over, between South America. I had non-Spanish speaking friends. I have friends from Central America. I have friends that were just regular Americans, right? And you get to know people. And and plus my background, I think I told you last show, I had a background in political science and history. I was studying international relations at FIU, Florida National University. And so I've always liked cultures and backgrounds and history. I like to travel. I like to see experience. Yeah, I like it. I personally like diversity of people and ideas. I just find it fascinating. But not everybody's like that. Some people are my tunnel, this is what I know, this is what I like. I don't like anything spoken, no other foods. I just like what I like. Meat and potatoes, that's what I know. That's what I like.
Plain vanilla.
That plain vanilla. And you're like, okay, but this is a diverse. America's a country of immigrants from all over the world, man. And that's what I try to explain to people. And sometimes I said, your grandparents came from wherever, right?
Right.
No, none of us are from here.
Yeah.
I mean, we all came from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I try to explain that to some people. Some people get it, and some people just don't get it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like a weird disconnect. I remember when I was being trained as an insurance investigator, my trainer, who's now my friend Christian, his family's from El Salvador, and he grew up in Southern California, and he was a Spanish speaker and really nice guy. So, but as he was training me, we were riding around for 6 weeks together. The parallels between his family in El Salvador and my Irish family background were like so similar, like right down to like Christianity, the way family gatherings go, the relationships. It was like, by the end of it, we're like, man, this is so weird. It's like our two cultures are very similar in a lot of ways.
The Catholic upbringing, right? My family was Catholic. I went to Catholic schools my whole life. A lot of Irish friends, also Irish Americans, because Catholicism, Italians, South Americans. It's Catholicism. I mean, Catholics is about 95% of Latin America. Yeah. So it's quite a bit. So that's a big culture and history that we have, coming from Spain, then from Spain to Cuba. And then, of course, communism, Fidel Castro and the revolution changed. And so my family left Spain for economic reasons, fascism. And then from Cuba, they were doing really well, very successful, but lost it all because of the communist revolution, right? Yeah. And they had to come into this great country. So, I tell people, and I write political books, fortunately, how great things we have around the world. Look how bad things are in communist China, how bad things are in Russia, in North Korea, and Venezuela. We're very fortunate to be here. Yeah, there's no perfect society, but you know what? It's probably the best thing that's out there.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, how many books have you written now? Because last time you were on, you had written 63. Like 20?
63.
What is going on? I mean, you got the bug. I know you were towards the end of your career during COVID, you were working from home for the headquarters and all that. And then I think that's when you decided to put pen to paper and write a book. And then it just kind of, what I like about it is you're not specifically trying to sit down and write like a 700-page novel. You're writing very consumable books. Like you can listen to them in a day and a half. You know what I mean? I kind of like that style, kind of like almost like Roald Dahl wrote a lot of books. You could just kind of like from start to finish, you could read it, and it wasn't this like huge commitment of reading a book for a month.
Yeah, I don't have time for that either. That's another reason why. And I don't know if I would have. Sometimes I'll lose interest. It's hard enough. It was hard for me to write my my autobiography because I'm not the biggest guy who likes telling war stories, but I thought it was important enough because I had everything documented to take not just about that, but also like I said, the good, the bad, and the ugly of ATF. Right. Difficult situations in my personal life, like the passing of my father and how he passed from tragically from pancreatic cancer, stage 4, very healthy man, and all of a sudden. 6-7 months later, he passed away. He deteriorated just like that. didn't drink, didn't smoke, very athletic, 65, never enjoyed retirement.
Oh, that's awesome. So
it is horrible. And I think it was horrible seeing, my mother and everything else. And so it's the best of times, like Charles Dickens said, it was the worst of times, right?
Right.
I just got married, right? I had my wife, we're newlyweds. I'm dealing with this here. And of course I'm dealing with my work, and it's a lot going on. He passes, you learn a lot from it, but then we start a family. So that's in itself works out really nicely too. So
I liked how you spoke about family and how important it was, and how like having the children and making a family unit was like the best thing. It
is. It is. Changes. It absolutely changes you. That's probably the best title I have. Papi.
I agree. Absolutely. It's I love how you met your wife too. You said weren't you checking in evidence at the ATF, and she was like working records or something?
FDLE. She was working for Florida Department of Law Enforcement in Tampa, evidence intake. And she was new to the area, and I've been there about a year because I'm from South Florida. I was with Customs, and I know I'll tell you some stories with Customs. Mm-hmm. And I came over, and she had a nice smile, and we started talking. We know the area, gave my business card, and she called me later that night and left a message, say, "Hey, just call and say hi."
Love it.
And the rest was history.
My wife and I were the same way when we met. It was like we didn't play any of that, like wait 3 days or don't be too interested. We were both like, we're both interested and let's hang out immediately. And that's the way it should be. What are these head games,
I can't stand that. I dealt with that a lot. And you're scratching your head. It's like wasting time. But,
yeah, absolutely.
And then you get misinformation and say, maybe they're not interested. I don't know. It's hard to tell sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Emmy winner Jodie Comer stars in Prima Facie on Broadway. The Sunday Times raves, a theatrical star is born in these 90 high-adrenaline minutes. Don't miss this solo tour de force, says the Daily Telegraph. Performances begin April 11th. Get tickets now at primafaciplay.com.
Ignacio, I think it would be interesting for people to hear, and for me to hear, about you started your career with Customs. Specifically, What are these guys doing in the airport? Like, what is a day in the life of a Customs agent at the airport, and what do you find?
Yeah. I was there during the 90s, right? I started in my early 20s out of college, and I decided to go with Customs. I was going to end up going to law school because I was at FIU, Florida International University, studying international relations, and I had put in for school up in Lansing, Michigan, Thomas Cooley, and I wasn't sure if I really wanted to go, but the internet had started, right? Mm-hmm. Windows 95 came out. And I went on and I started setting up emails. I taught myself how to go on and everything else. But a lot of people are saying, hey, what's this internet thing? What are you doing wasting your time? They said, you can look for jobs here, which is what my number one. I said, remember you have to go through the classifieds for employment and find out.
Yep.
All the government jobs were listed there. And I was noticing that, the Fed world and everything else, and Customs were looking for Spanish speakers. I spoke Spanish with a background understanding Latin American cultures. Well, obviously I did that. I grew up there. So I said, man, this is a good paying job. I'm very athletic. I used to shoot with my father. So I said, you know what? I'm going to put in for it. And I ended up getting the position. And I said, okay, well, at least I don't have to go in debt in law school and accrue all that debt, because even back in the 90s, it was a lot of money, about $30,000 a year. And I didn't feel like going to Lansing, Michigan and going through those, severe cold winters, right?
Yeah.
I could stay in South Florida, Miami. So I got picked up. I said, Miami International Airport. And first thing you do, you start working passenger processing. You're in uniform, and you're helping. You just getting what's going on. But in the 90s, you can't forget that you still had the Medellin and the Cali cartel still flourishing pretty strongly. And a lot of the drugs were still coming through Florida and through the airports and seaports, right? So I would then join the contraband enforcement team, the SET team, right, which was their elite team. And we would have some of the biggest seizures in the country at the time. And it wasn't uncommon to get 850 pounds of cocaine coming from Guayaquil, Ecuador, that we intercepted in Miami at the airport.
How would they try to get that through? Like just a big package?
Corruption was enormous.
Okay.
Corruption is enormous. That's how they did it. Ramp workers are dirty. A lot of the employees, the longshoremen are dirty. I mean, they have people. It was a huge network, huge corruption, and they knew this was to be ripped off. It gets put off their plane, and off it goes into the trucks, and it's never going to go where it's supposed to go. It gets taken somewhere else, and it's massive, massive corruption. That's what was going on.
So they weren't like hiding it in like dog toys or like coffee cans. They were just straight up packaging and sending it.
You would see the huge grouper with a block of ice next to a block of kilo. When I looked at it, I remember seeing how opening up. You're like, wow, look at that. And because that's the quickest way to get there. Forget put it on a boat and it takes 5, 6, 7 days to get out there from Colombia. No, you're in a plane. It's there in 4 or 5 hours. Right? Wow. Because and demand was huge. And still, unfortunately, in our country, demand is still huge for cocaine, heroin, and other drugs. But it's not the Colombians anymore. They collapsed, right? Now it's the Mexican cartels that use Colombian drugs, but they're the ones pushing it through the border now, land border. And that's the quickest, and tunnels and trucks. And it's amazing. And of course, heroin, pills, everything is coming through Mexico. Yeah. A lot of it's coming through. And that's what we've been noticing. But I would see it, the saddest way, I don't know if I told you this last one, maybe another show I did, the swallowers, guys who would swallow the pellets full of cocaine and heroin. That was tough. That was tough because, there were so many. They were kamikaze. Again, you load someone up. They have about 3 or 4 pounds.
And would they be under duress usually for this? Like, hey, you got to do this for us, or
some would be, I would think, and some would get paid. I mean, I always found it. Let's say if you were traveling from, let's say, Florida or Puerto Rico to Medellin, right? And you were there for a long weekend. That was an indicator, especially if you use a certain carrier to come back and everything, ticket agency. That would be an indicator because where'd you go see? Where did you travel? Where'd you go? They have no answers. They went there to hotel, swallow a lot of these pellets, and they're going to push them over here.
Oh man, that's so scary to me because if one bursts, you're done, right?
Yeah. They start leaking, especially heroin. We would have quite a few DOA, dead on arrival, and even when we take them, let's say we catch them, it's a process. We go to a local hospital, Jackson Memorial Hospital. We have to give them the laxatives. We have to have doctors look at them, and sometimes they still couldn't pass them. Then they have to have them removed, through operations and get the pellets out.
Would you have to stand there and watch?
Yeah. That's they'll give them to you, but it's the whole process. It's unbelievable. And those who do make it and they can't pass it, sometimes the cartels and these guys are not going to play around waiting for you 4 or 5 days to pass this, right? If you're taking too long, which happens every so often, they will shoot you in the head and gut you and take the stuff out themselves and leave you, one of these cheesy hotels, in downtown Miami. So it's like, one of those businesses, cocaine trafficking, ruthless. They don't care. These are peasants, people they use and abuse. Go out there and go on. I got really good at it too. I could smell it on their breath because a lot of times they use some sort of sports drink to push it down.
Yeah,
you can pick that up on them also. It's like that, and days and traveling. So that's part of the job, cut your teeth. Because like I said, I was a guy who was going to go to law school, got into law enforcement, and now on the front line of the war on drugs.
Yeah.
And you're seeing firsthand, big time, how much is coming in here and the corruption. I mean, I'm going to say not just on the airport side, but with customs. About a few months on the job, the chief of Customs Miami, he was arrested with some other guys for escorting loads. We had smaller airports that we also had to clear.
Yeah.
And they would clear it themselves and have Hollandale Beach Police Department and Hollywood Police Department do escorts of drug loads that came on the small aircrafts to different locations.
Wow. That's bad. Yeah.
You can look that up. Back in the 90s. Yeah. And so I walked into that. It's like, man, what am I, eyes wide open. It's like, wow, this guy was our chief and he's protecting, escorting the drug loads that are coming in from South America on the small airplanes that are coming in from the small airports with the local police department helping him out.
Man, that's no bueno, as they say.
That's malísimo.
Ignacio, can you walk us through another case I thought was real interesting was Maldonado case? Yeah.
Those are what we do a lot with car teeth. And obviously we do a lot of violent criminals. This would end up being a firearms trafficking case, which I would do a lot of undercover. I was a case agent and undercover. And again, with good informants, right? They pretty much make an intro and you're golden. And you can go as far as you want with the group, this person, organization, what have you. And I've been fortunate I have had really good informants. And I was a good handler. I treated people right. I respected people, right? Mm-hmm. They get back in return. But I also demanded certain things as a handler and as the case agent undercover that you do things. And I try to also cut them off as soon as I can. Because lesson learned is everybody, no matter how good intentions they are, especially if they're addicts or they have other issues, they end up reversing and go back. And I don't want anything compromised now. I put a lot of time in this. I don't want the case going to shit because they messed up.
Right.
And that's one thing I was paranoid about that, because at the end, they still are unnecessary evil. And that's one thing I can say to an informant. You kind of wish you don't have to use them, but you do. And then I only would bring them back if I had any doubts what's going on, just to get some information. Say, hey, what do they think about me? What are they saying about me?
Yeah.
And record that and see what kind of feedback I would get that way here. So, this guy, Maldonado, he was a FedEx employee. He was popped trafficking. This is going to be a level different corruption. We're talking about, corruption at the airport, corruption within customs, corruption within FedEx now. We're talking about corruption at different levels. I'm going to show you with firearms trafficking, people just trying to make more money. And this is good case, hundreds of guns I would end up seizing. And unfortunately, I know we talked before we came on how these kind of firearms trafficking, dealing without a license cases, you do not get a lot of time federally.
Right.
You get a slap in the wrist if you don't have a history. If you have a history, maybe a little more time. Maldonado did get a little more time because this guy he pled guilty in Puerto Rico for illegally trafficking, using his position of FedEx to traffic guns in Puerto Rico, right, to get him out there. He was caught. He pled guilty and is pending sentencing. I get introduced to him. He's now going to gun shows and flea markets, buying a lot of guns, selling online, and I'm buying guns from him now. I get introduced to him, and I'm buying some FNs 5.7 millimeter by 28, what they call the cop killers. They penetrate body armor level 3A, right? And because they look like 2 to 3 rounds, but in a handgun, right? They're the rifle type rounds, and expensive weapon, about 800, 850. They're made in Belgium, Fabrique Nationale. So they're nice, expensive. He's buying that. He's a convicted. He just pled. He's a convicted felon, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm buying, not just trafficking now. This guy's a convicted felon. He just pled, pending to be sentenced. Doesn't care. Lost his job at FedEx. He doesn't care. So what he's doing now? He's all over selling guns, and I'm buying a lot of guns from him. The teams from Puerto Rico comes in. They went part of the takedown. This is about a few months now dealing with this guy. I bought all different kinds of weapons, from Glocks to the FNs. But the FNs are out there because those are guns in the wrong hands. You deal with law enforcement. Even if you don't have a plate, but just regular body armor, right? It still goes through it. It's not like a 9mm that at least try to stop it, right? A handgun, this doesn't matter. It's going to go through it. So, and he's a bad dude because he doesn't care. He knows what I am. I'm telling, hey, dude, I'm trafficking guns too, and he doesn't give it. He doesn't care either. So these are the kind of people, and he just pled guilty to this, right?
Unreal.
He don't care. So we take him down. I'll put a big order in for 8 guns from different, S&W, Smith & Wessons, Glocks, even a Tommy gun. He even brings me a Tommy gun with a 75-round drum, not fully automatic, but semi-automatic. But still, all these guns, he gets access to them. You know where he gets them? Different gun shows. You go out there, cash, and he's a convicted felon. Nobody's doing background checks. He goes in there, he buys it, cash and carry, and here I go, I take him, and he doesn't care what I'm doing with him. So we take him down, and then he gets sent back to Puerto Rico because there's a warrant for his arrest, and he gets to do some more time. And eventually he does more time on my case. He ends up doing, he does a little more because he has a felony. He does about 5 years, but still, come on. For this kind of significant weapons, I bought over 30-some weapons from this guy, put them on the streets. He was a convicted felon in Puerto Rico. He should have been doing a lot more time because he's definitely a problem, a menace to putting the guns on. So the case grows. So from him, I want to see some of his sources. He goes in there. So I'm looking at numbers, I'm getting information, and I start dealing with one of his sources, who was his high school teacher in Citrus County. So this guy now is a high school teacher, right? Jeez. And so dirty FedEx employee, high school teacher now. He will also lose his job as a high school teacher, by the way. He ends up doing a side gig because, they all complain they don't get paid enough, right?
Right.
I don't get paid enough. I'm out here in Central Florida, in Ocala, or where, no, Citrus County. But he will be a guy that goes to, gun shows, flea markets, online, buying guns, flipping guns.
What a strange second job to pick up for a teacher.
That's Central Florida, though. That's a lot of that you see that, because I understand gun enthusiasts, but if you want to do that, you need to get a license.
Yeah, get an FFL.
You need to get an FFL, Federal Firearms license, set it up, but then guess what? Oh man, that's a lot of paperwork. Yeah, that's a lot of things you got to do, right? It's not that easy. Here, flip guns. You say, okay, you have an ID? Okay, I really don't want to look at this. Okay, here you go. Like I would do with him, and he said, okay, what are you looking for now? I said, well, it wasn't his collection. He would say, hey, what are you looking for? I'm looking for X, Y, and Z. So what do you have? He said, I have this. Okay, I'm looking for this. So what you don't have. I already know what your inventory is now. You told me. Well, I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for other things. I said, not a problem. I'll be at a gun show. I'll call you this weekend when I'm there, and I'll tell me what you like.
Jeez. A la carte, huh?
And this is like all the time. All the time. I mean, Steve, it just doesn't end like that. Florida's such a sore state, and I've done cases, a lot of them like this. Also the bad guys, but these guys are a problem because they put the guns into hands of bad people, man. Right. That's the problem with these guys, is that they don't care. This guy will put the guns to Maldonado. Well, then Maldonado will then send to Puerto Rico. Well, you know how dangerous and crazy in Puerto Rico is, right? It's out of control out there. The level of violence out there is insane. Yeah. Insane. I mean, you can be a professional boxer. I wrote a book about the life of Hector Camacho. He was gunned down in Puerto Rico, right? He was gunned down there and by Bayamon. So it's dangerous. It doesn't care who you are. You can be a celebrity or whatever. Violence is violent, and they have some of the worst. They have one of the worst street gangs or prison gangs called La Nieta. Very violent. I talk about that in one of my prison gang killer books in there. A lot of violence, a lot of street gangs, Latin Kings. So those guns were going to those kind of people. So that was satisfying taking those two. So I said, okay, well, this guy, I take him down after buying quite a few guns. I put a mega order in at the end, right, for the buy bust, over like 40-some guns, right, with him. But he's also armed. When the arrest team comes in, and he has his truck and his girlfriend in the car, and it is full of boxes of firearms that are coming to me. Jeez. Just coming to me, and he was loading them up, and it's insane, dude. You can't make it. This is insane stuff. But I put it in there, and you heard it. And we take him down, and he panics, and he said, "Oh my God, don't shoot me! I have a gun in my pocket," and all that. And I said, "Okay, good for now. That cover team, the rest team, handcuff him and everything else." And he's kind of having a meltdown. His girlfriend's having a meltdown in there. Yeah, of course, seeing this, her boyfriend just got taken down by ATF agents. And he had another box for another order in there, all Glocks, same make and model. So this is not a collector. Right. When Powell buys 15 of the same make and model, these are traffickers. They're just one thing only, to make money. And so he cooperates a little bit. And it takes a different level to where I meet the dirty FFL, right?
Yeah, this part is really like mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. So, and he's out of the Crestview area in Florida, and I meet with him. And like I said, good intro. Okay, you get introduced, everything's good because he'd be dealing with him a lot also. I buy some Glocks. I try to keep it with the Glocks. It can be a lot easier. I got 22 Glock 22s, 40s. Buy the same model, 5 or 6, 7, right from the beginning. Same, they don't make a model. Knowing this, I'm not a collector. I'm making clear to him that I'm going to be getting rid of these. I'm not going to stay in the area. He said, "Oh, I like that." He tells me when he introduces themselves. He's an older guy, white male. I would say at the time he was 60s, right? So 60s, dealing with this. The other two guys were probably at the time probably the same age I was, 30s, right?
Yep. So
I'm at this time I'm in my late 30s, right? Doing all this stuff. Maybe I haven't done 30 yet, so it's late 30s. New guy in his mid 60s, and he explains to me, say, "Listen, you have nothing to worry about." He says, "You want to do this? I can pay him cash. We can do this all day." And he says, "Well, how does this work?" And he goes, "Listen, I'm a federal firearms licensee." He tells me that, but I don't put it in my A&D book. And he even said it, which is those who do know that is acquisition disposition book. That way, ATF. He says ATF will never find out because I'll get from the wholesaler.
He's telling that to you. That's funny.
Yeah, I'm not going to put it in the book. I'm not going to log him in. So I use it, I get the discount, and I'll sell it to you. Because, wholesalers give them FFLs a little bit of a discount for buying bulk and all that. So he gets this discount, He doesn't put it in the book, and he sells it to me with no questions asked, no paperwork. I said, man, just keep on talking. So I do a few more of those, and then something strange happens where and that's what's important when you're tracing guns, and I didn't want to. This is some of the issues you run into with management, right? You have infighting going on with the investigation, how soon to pull it, how not to pull it, right? Where they want to go. Okay, you have enough buys in. This is not going well. I guess one of the wholesalers, the guns were maybe should have been traced, and they might have been traced. Notify him, hey, ATF has traced some of the guns that you're selling. So the next time I meet with him, I guess he brings his bodyguard with him, and he was armed. But then he looks at me and goes, "I'm done dealing with you," and he takes off. Well, then I give the takedown, and then he gets popped, and we get more information of what's going on with him. But at the end, I get quite a few guns with him, and he ends up getting only 2 years.
Really?
He loses his license. The other guy, this high school teacher, he got probation.
Wow. I guess I do remember that from the book. That's part of the big problem, right? There's really no consequence.
Yeah, Maldonado, he got more time because he had a felony conviction, right? So that put him up, and the amount of weapons he had also, and dealing with that gave him more time. But the other two had nothing. So you have no criminal history. This is your first one. Yeah, both of them now are convicted felons, which makes it next time they do get the guns, which is not hard. They can go to a flea market and do whatever they want. But next time will be more time. But now they can't go. He can never have an FFL license again. This guy can never apply for an FFL license because they're both now convicted felons. But it's a slap in the wrist, right? Yeah. Slap in the hand. And really, in my opinion, and I wrote that in the book, a lot of these cases dealing with a license, you should have a minimum mandatory time. Just like you do for armed drug trafficking, you get a 5-year min-man. I think you should have a 5-year min-man when you have these kind of guys selling these kind of weapons to really bad people. Because if not, it doesn't discourage anybody. They just go back at it again and do it. And they might be still doing it again. It's been years since those happened, and you don't know what happens.
Yeah, that's crazy because, like larceny cases over a certain dollar amount are like 10, 15-year felonies. And these guys are selling
lots of
guns to bad guys and not caring. It seems like it should be. Do you think this FFL guy? So Florida's a different animal than Mass when it comes to gun stores. You could count the amount of gun stores in Mass on like 2 hands probably. There's just not a lot because it's very restrictive. But they stand to make money because there's not a lot of them. If you go through all the trouble of doing it, these guys are like extremely strict when you go in a gun store in Mass. They're a lot of them are obnoxious actually with how. You can look at a gun and be like, the kind of the gun nerds, you see a gun and you're like, oh, that's nice looking. I remember I was in one and I go, and I'm a police officer. He doesn't know that, but I'm like, that's a nice looking 45. Well, if you want to hold it, you're going to have to show me your LTC. Like, okay, just like super in my face about it. I'm like, all right, take it easy, man. But do you think in Florida, do you think this guy was probably there's so many gun stores and there's so many people selling guns. There's so many gun shows. Probably a struggle for a gun shop owner there. So he's like, I'm not making enough money.
That's right.
Being legit, I can get an upper hand by just selling without all these rules. That's probably what happened, right? He just was greedy.
Oh, greedy! Greedy is the biggest. It's also a lack of public trust because it takes a lot to get an FFL license, and for them to do that, it's a problem. And money is a huge motivator. A lot of them have financial problems. They file for bankruptcy. There's always something else why they're putting themselves in that problem. Because again, he lost his license, he lost that livelihood. He now is a convicted felon. He has a stain. It was a big story when it happened, yeah. Right? All these cases show, hey, high school teacher, problem. FedEx employee, problem. The pattern of doesn't care where you come from, what you can be Hispanic, non-Hispanic, you can be an elderly person, a younger person. They're all gun traffickers. All different kinds, all gun traffickers, man. All looking to make a lot of money. Different background. They don't care. It's all about. Remember I said the common denominator. Right. They all like the green. It's all about the green.
Yeah,
that's what they like. Green, and it costs them. But that's a problem. It's like those straw purchasers. Which a lot of cases, sometimes they don't have smart enough. The smart ones never walk into an FFL. Let's be clear, especially in Florida. The smart ones go to gun shows, flea markets, cash and carry, no questions asked. Even the ones smarter are the ones online, and then they go there and they meet people. Like I tell people, I used to buy guns with people online all the time who were selling guns, and you knew they're felons, and you meet with them. So a lot of times you have felons selling to felons, a parking lot at McDonald's or Target or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's in Mass, it's like you can do personal firearm sales still. You're supposed to use the portal online to transfer the gun and all that. But essentially, you meet the person to sell them a gun, and they just show you their LTC. You as a citizen, you don't have any way to run that. You don't know if it's active or not. It could be a fake LTC,
Sure.
But you're going to, ultimately, you could be on the hook if you're selling privately a gun to, I think you can only sell 4 handguns a year in Mass privately, but I don't know how gun shows work up here, or if is that still. It seems kind of, and I'm a big Second Amendment guy. I'm a big pro-gun guy, but I'm also into keeping guns away from people that shouldn't have them. So the whole gun show thing to me has always seemed crazy. Like, is it the same in every state, like Texas and Florida, or would a gun show in Massachusetts have more restriction?
I know Florida, people have their own tables for private sales. I'm not sure if you can have private sales at a gun show in Massachusetts. Some places don't allow it, and some it's only FFLs where they have backgrounds. But the places that have the guys who are private sellers at the gun show, that's a free-for-all. It's unbelievable. And the FFLs hate having these guys because they undercut them.
Of
and
course.
They can't stand them. No background, cheaper prices, and all the shady people go there. It's a problem. And I dealt with cases also with both ends. These guys are trafficking also. They said their collection, but you're seeing the inventory is changing, right?
Yeah.
Your collection expires. Your collection, you're done. Collectors collect, right? Traffickers sell. And these are traffickers.
Right.
These aren't collectors, man. And their inventories are selling. They're changing. That's a problem. There's so many loopholes. It's just unbelievable, which is it's problematic for law enforcement and as investigators, and problematic for good people because these are bad people. Criminals get their weapons.
Yeah, geez, I got a gun safe full of guns. I hate selling guns. I hold on to them to my.
I'm my collection too. I need it for protection. I like it. I like shooting. I like going out there. A lot of people, I think you guys know this, but ATF agents, most of them I dealt with, are very pro Second Amendment also.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, most cops are.
Yeah, they're very, very pro Second Amendment. There's a mentality out here that, we want to take people's guns away from them and everything else. No, we want law-abiding citizens to have their weapons. It's just the bad guys not to have the guns, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones who are not, they're criminals. And I think I mentioned your show and other shows, gun-free zones don't work. Gun-free zones just victimize us.
Yeah.
Because these guys are coming back, and they're going to be armed. They don't follow laws. Remember that. Criminals do not follow laws. You think, hey, we just passed a gun-free zone in this place. Oh, that means they know they can victimize everybody. That's not a good spot to be.
Yeah, because the law-abiding concealed carry permit holder won't bring his gun. Can't
bring it. That's one thing. That's why I like to live in red states. I think I told you that because I couldn't imagine having to deal with some. In Virginia, I'm living now. There's some restrictions I don't like. Florida was a lot easier in some ways, but at least it's not like some other states. Virginia's become a little bit red now again with the governor that came in, Republican. Haven't had it in a few years, so at least that's good. But other things, again, it's other things you got to look at. So
yeah, in Mass, it's like Mass is all the laws are all mess. It's all a lot of it's case law, and there's old colonial ordinances still on the books, but for guns, it's like technically it's an open carry state, but they've given the chiefs of police are the issuing authorities, and there are laws about causing public alarm with your gun, and they're very vague. So if you go into a restaurant with your nickel-plated 45 on your hip to get some pancakes, they would probably call the police in Massachusetts on you just to have them check for your permit, But there's been cases about are you causing a public disturbance simply because someone had to look at a gun? So it's real tricky up here. I'm covered right now under LEOSA. I can go any state I want. And even if I left law enforcement now, I have enough years on that I could continue with LEOSA. So it's like, all my friends are like, you SOB with that LEOSA, because I can freely carry pretty much anywhere and feel okay about it.
Yeah. I think for few exceptions that they make it hard for you, like if you have high-capacity magazine in New York City.
And New Jersey, right? Too.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned, I think, also different ammunition you can't carry in New Jersey. Armor piercing. Hollow points, yes.
Yeah, I went to a wedding. I was going to go to a wedding of my friends in southern Jersey near Delaware, and he said someone mentioned to me like, "Hey, don't travel with hollow points." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm on the job." They're like, "It actually doesn't matter." They said they're having issues with cops working and then driving home back into New Jersey in uniform in a cruiser with their hollow points and their rifles and all that. They're scrutinizing that. And I thought that was just insane.
That's bananas.
Yeah, so you got to be careful. Ignacio, we're at an hour here. Thank you so much for coming on again. But let's tell the people about ATF Undercover and where we can listen and or buy a copy.
Yeah, man, it's exclusively on Amazon. So you type in ATF Undercover, you go to Amazon. I think 90% of the books people buy online are on Amazon. So I went exclusively. So there's a lot of extra perks they give me for that, which I appreciate that. Audible, I did a shout out to Sean. He's a great voice actor. I don't know. Did you like his voice?
Absolutely. I was going to ask you, is that cost prohibitive or difficult to get someone to narrate your book? You did a great job.
He did a fantastic job. First time using him, I'm having 2 other books come out, which are I decided to put in. You have an option either paying the person or you can split some of your royalties with them, and so that's what I did.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
No,
he
was great, man, and that's not easy. Reading, my buddy of mine did that for a while. He was doing like textbooks, but making huge money for doing these textbooks. But he had a little studio set up in his house, soundproof studio. He'd be in there for hours on hours. But getting
he has one too.
Huge paycheck. I mean, he would get for like a book on quantum physics or something, he would get like $15,000. But you have to do it perfectly. So he would be redoing sentence after sentence, and it's subject matter that you don't necessarily understand. So it's like even more difficult.
Yes. No, he's been doing this for a while. Excellent. I had a referral from him from one of the other shows I do. I've networked a lot. I've been almost feels also like this content. You can check my name out on YouTube also or Rumble. Type in my name, Ignacio Esteban. I've done over like 60 some shows from different ones also. And I met him from another show, and he recommended him, and we started talking, and I said, you know what, why not? I think he did a great job. I like the voice. I heard some of the sampling he gave me from my book, and I got 2 more. So I put a lot of my series with true crime, with organized crime, into 2 books. One is called The Most Dangerous Crime Syndicates of Our Time, which is already out on Amazon. You can see it. But now him and I are working on Audible to get that done. Hopefully we have it done in about a month or so. That should be about 6.5 hours.
Nice.
So that's a long one. So if you want lengthy books, I got some lengthy. You like some short ones, then you can break down the subject matter. And I got some medium ones like ATF Undercover there. And then I just did another one, Killers and Tyrants, The Worst of this Century. And that's over 300 some pages, and also going to be about almost 7 hours on Audible. So
I'd like to get that one. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, I'll send to you. I'll send you that, like you did, and you'll see them. I'll send both to you. Because they send me, and beautiful Audible, they send me a lot of free credits too. So I'll get free credits. I send them out to a lot of people to enjoy them. And then I also got some, if you know anybody in the UK, I got a lot of free credits for the UK market. So I need a few people, but I still got a lot of free out there. So if you know anybody, let me know.
Yeah, anybody, any listeners in the UK, I know there's a bunch.
I got
contact me or Ignacio, and we can get your credit. That's awesome. Very cool, man. Well, thank you again. It was an honor to have you on for a second time, brother. I'm going to do the outro here, and the links for everything for Ignacio will be in the show notes and on the website as well. But I'll do the outro and be right back with you. Is that okay?
Yeah, man.
The great Ignacio Esteban. Second time. I can't get enough of these ATF stories. It's fascinating to me. Very cool. Honor to have him. Guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for rating and reviewing. Thank you to all the Patreon supporters. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot. I had to do this in post last time because I didn't get it done. You got to stand by. I'm going to Patreon right now to get the sergeants. There's 2 levels, patrolmen or sergeants. But if you do sergeant, I will do a shout out for you on every episode. Have to activate the filter here. One time I had to do both because I did the filter wrong and it was way too long and I ran out of time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, who I'm talking about is Holly Vanover, Richard Tolles, Joe DeFries. Sorry, Joe. The great Raymond Arsenal, Duggan Kelly Newman, Burley Boards, that's Dan Carlson, Derek Warden, Scott Young, Wayne M. Miller, Nick Noose, the great Tom Connell, Dennis, because that's all he put, George Tessier, Motor Cop Chronicles, Greg Gabboy, Ben Peters, Scott Minkler, the great Tammy Walsh, Sean Clifford, Braden Walker, Sasha McNabb, Corey Payne, Mike Wynn, Nathan Gowan, Jason Lau, the great Sarah Pomeroy, Lauren Stimson, Brandon Hooker, Jake Pinito, John Shoemaker, James Rose, Seth Wright, Tony Fahey, William James Long, this Deputy William James Long to you, Andy Biggs, Chris June, Adam Mihal, the great Gary Steiner, and the handsome Lane Campbell. Guys, thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you for continuing to support the show. I truly, truly appreciate it. Let me shut that off. You guys keep the lights on over here, keep the boat afloat. So I appreciate you for doing that. Guys, that's it for this week, and I'll catch you next time.
Surgeons keep our hearts beating. They do the amazing, help save lives, and so can you. Your CSL plasma donation can help create 24 critical life-saving medicines that can give Grandpa the chance for his heart to swell when he meets his new grandson, or give a bride the chance for her heart to skip a beat on her wedding day. Every plasma donation helps more than you know. Do the amazing. Help save lives. Donate today at your local CSL Plasma Center and be rewarded for your generosity.